You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
Thanks to Concordia University, Wisconsin for supporting The Coffee Hour. Find out more about Concordia University, Wisconsin at cuw.edu.
Live uncommon.
We have a great story to share with you today. How do we care for our neighbor, particularly when we don't see our neighbors face to face? Jennifer Hummel, Program Coordinator for Christ Care for Children Kenya for the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. Jennifer, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So what is Christ Care for Children Kenya?
Christ Care for Children Kenya is in a nutshell, it's LCMS's very first child sponsorship program. When I talk about Christ Care for Children Kenya, I also talk about Project 24. Project 24, without it, we would not have Christ Care for Children Kenya, the sponsorship piece. So I'll put this in a little story format to help our listeners understand a little better. Project 24 is actually a boarding facility in Kenya. There are 8 boarding facilities currently. The goal is to have 24, hence Project 24. And we find vulnerable children in Kenya through the Evangelical Lutheran Church. And then the children can come and stay at the facilities while they attend school and church. The students are they start around the 8th grade, and we take them all the way through high school. And they actually live at those facilities, attend school and church. Once they get to high school, they move out of the actual facilities there and are boarded at high school, but they're still cared for and sponsored through families, individuals, and organizations here in the United States.
That is fantastic.
It's a wonderful program.
So how did this program begin?
Back in 2012, we had a group of individuals from the Minnesota North Dakota district visited Kenya and found a need to help children. The children were, again, identified through the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Kenya. They couldn't attend school. Their families couldn't send them to school. A lot of them were orphaned. They were in vulnerable situations. And these men said, they need help. What can we do? It started out as 1,001 orphans. And after about 3 years in, they realized they needed some help. Asked the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod for assistance. We partnered with the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Kenya and changed the name to Project 24.
So what are these? You shared with us some of the needs. What are the needs and how are they met? What does that look like in a practical sense?
Okay. So the students, when they get to the facilities, not only do they attend school, they learn about Jesus, which is first and foremost, of course, in the program. Their physical, mental, and spiritual needs are met each and every day. Each facility, each Project 24 facility is built next to an Evangelical Lutheran Church and within walking distance of a primary school in Kenya. Each facility has its own plot of land, so the students learn to garden, plant, and harvest their own vegetables. Each facility has its own milking cow, livestock. There's chickens and goats. The children learn to care for themselves. They learn to self-sustain. And then 3 times a year, the students get to go back to their extended families or clans, and they start telling the story of what they've learned at the centers and, in essence, become everyday missionaries themselves. So it's really, really cool.
Wow. Do you have a story from one of the children that you could share with us today?
Sure. I have a couple of stories, and one of them that really sticks out in my mind that I guess is more on a serious side of the program and how it helps. During the pandemic, when the students were sent home, as the students here in the States were sent home for those 8 months, we realized the true need of keeping these children safe from their environment. For instance, one of the young ladies was in a place that she could have been sold into marriage for the exchange of livestock. Her mother was single. Her father had passed away when Josephine was very young, and her uncles felt that they needed food, they needed money, and that was a situation that she was in. It became very apparent the serious nature that these children are in. We were able to take her out of a situation similar to that and put her in school. She started in the 8th grade with us, and she's now in high school in Form 3, I believe. That's the equivalent of a junior in high school. She's doing very well. She's passed all of her exams every year, and she would like to be a doctor and give back to the community where she came from to help other young girls get out of the situations that they're in. So very exciting story in that one. Daniel is another young student that started back with the 1001 Orphan Program. He was, I think, in the 8th grade, but he's gotten through the 8th grade into high school into college, and he is studying to be an evangelist and to work for the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod and the ELCK there in Kenya.
That's fantastic. Mm-hmm. What kind of difference does this make for these kids to have this new outlook on life, I suppose?
Well, it's we're bringing Christ to children. We're bringing Christ to the communities, and we're giving them hope. We're showing them that God has a plan for you, and getting them out of some of the situations that they're in, they can realize they can realize what God has for them. We hope to bring more children to Christ. Thereby, the children go back into the communities as they get older and share Christ's story, share the salvation, and give back to their communities and become working, contributing members in their communities.
The stories you shared are just of Daniel and Josephine are just magnificent stories. And I know those are just two of the children that have benefited from this wonderful outreach and care for children. Any idea how many children have been supported through, even if it's a rough number, who have been supported through this program?
Well, currently we have 340 students in the Project 24 program and in the Beyond 24 program, Beyond 24 being the high school part of the program. Mm-hmm. We have had 348 students baptized, and those that are of age have been confirmed. The goal is each center can house up to 50 to 80 students, depending on the facility. We are currently at about half capacity at each location, and we hope through sponsorships, as we get more students sponsored, we can pull more students in.
And you mentioned earlier that this is a partnership with our friends in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Kenya. Mm-hmm. What have they shared with you about how this has been a service to them and to help them? What have they shared about this partnership with you?
We have taken some of the leaders in those churches and put them in situations where they've had to learn to be managers of these facilities. So we're helping members of their diocese grow, being in the community during the pandemic, during COVID. The leaders were able to visit each student at their home twice a month. The first time we were so organized during that time, and I always say when I share this story, if there is a silver lining in the pandemic, this is one of them. So the leaders were able to visit each student twice a month, the first time to offer food and packets of some clothing and provisions that the families need, and then the second time each month they would visit and they would sit and share. It was a wellness visit. Sit and share stories from the Bible. They would do Bible verses, talk to the families to make sure that everyone was okay, because this was such a hard time for everyone.
What are some of the other things that happened during the pandemic? We know some of what it was like here for kids who weren't able to go to school, but what effect did that have on the kids during the pandemic?
The kids that were involved in Project 24, our program director there has shared that our children were safe. During the pandemic, a lot of the students that are in the schools became very violent. There were lots of looting and things going on in the communities. Markets were closed. A lot of pregnancies took place. And all of our students, because of these visits and because of what we were able to provide and through the prayer of all of us, they were safe, and we didn't have any stories of any of our students. The pictures of these kids when they came back to the facilities when the pandemic was over is absolutely heartwarming. They look just like our kids when they got to go back to school and they got to be with their friends, and especially the girls, the smiles on the faces of these girls and the hugs, and the pictures are just fantastic.
So what's next for Christ Care for Children Kenya?
We hope to, like I mentioned before, bring more children, to Christ. The goal of Project 24 is to have 24 locations. Right now we have 8. Some of the locations are built from the ground, and some of them are existing facilities. And we just hope to be all over Kenya. And we hope to get all these students sponsored, and we can then add more students.
So tell us more about that, about sponsoring students.
So you can sponsor a student. We actually have, for anyone that is interested, any of your listeners that are interested, we have a virtual event coming up on April the 2nd at 9 in the morning. It's a Saturday. We're going to have some of our team in Kenya speaking. I'll be there. There'll be some existing sponsors there to share the story of what it's like to be a sponsor.
Can you share with us the website and how we can learn more?
I sure can. It's www.lcms.org/Christ Care for Children Kenya. We also have a Facebook page called Project 24-Kenya, and all the information will be there.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us about Christ Care for Children Kenya, and Project 24, and the ways that these children are being cared for, and the gospel is being brought into their lives. Jennifer, thanks so much for being our guest on the Coffee Hour today. Jennifer Hummel, Program Coordinator, Christ Care for Children Kenya.
Thank you for having me.
You're listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.